Hi, everybody. This is Dawn with Painted Willow Art. Ignore my headset. This is part of my day job, and it's easier to just record the video with this than to try and unhook everything and hook it back up in the morning. So ignore the headset. um, I am going to start doing something new on my social media channels this year. On the first Monday of every month, we're going to do Art Meditation Monday or Monday Art Meditation. I can't remember what I called it. I'll have to look. And Tuesdays, we're going to do Technique Tuesday. So on the first Monday of every month, I'm going to show you a piece out of my art practice. And the reason I'm doing this is because I don't just make art to sell. Part of what I do is teach ways to use art meditatively to relax, to relieve stress, to calm anxiety, all those things. Art is extremely beneficial in that way, as is really any creative practice. You could do the same thing with playing music or knitting or crocheting or woodworking, whatever your craft of choice is. For me, it's making art, painting, drawing, that kind of thing. And so I'm going to start sharing some of that stuff with you. I host a mindful art club where we learn and practice different techniques to do this. But I want to share some easy techniques with all of you. So we're going to do that the first Monday and Tuesday of every month. Yesterday, I shared on Instagram and Facebook a piece that I had done that looks like this. The whole goal with this piece was not to be a finished cohesive piece, gallery quality, anything like that. It was strictly a play piece. I wanted to play with the idea of weaving watercolor pieces. And I also wanted to try this line style that I've been seeing on Pinterest and all over the place for the last little bit. So I just did them both at the same time. For me, this was less about what it looked like and more about just the process of sitting down and doing it and trying it. And the fact that when I'm making art like this, particularly something like this, where I'm not going for a specific finished look, it is for me the best way to calm the incessant brain chatter in my head. And so I want to start sharing some of that with you. So what I'm going to show you in this video is how to do this line style, because I found it to be supremely relaxing when I did it. I was surprised at how well it works. For me, often doodling, drawing, random line shapes, basic shapes, things like that works really, really well. So I'm going to share that with you today. So I'm going to point this down and look at my paper. I believe my camera maybe is upside down from where I'm drawing just because of where it sits, but for this particular type of drawing, it really doesn't make any difference. And you don't necessarily have to have any prior art skill. So if you don't typically draw or paint, I would still invite you to try this and see how it works for you. So first, what I'm going to show you is how to do the drawing, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of it. This drawing to me looks a lot like a clamshell. If you've seen the clamshells on the beach that are kind of long and rectangular, but their edges are not necessarily rounded. They're kind of I don't even know the word that I want for the shape, but they're all kind of wonky. That's what this reminds me of, and we're going to start it with that in mind. So think of like or maybe oyster. That's what I'm looking for. Not a clam necessarily, but an oyster shell. So we're going to start this with the idea of a little pearl right in the middle. So I'm just going to make a little circular-ish mark. It doesn't have to be perfectly round. And then I'm going to start on one side of that mark. So I'm starting back here, and I'm going to work this way. It doesn't matter which direction you work. That's just how I'm going to start it for tonight. So I'm going to start kind of back here at the edge of this circle, and I'm just going to make, you can see how I did this line. I'm just going to go up and around and end back on the back side. There is no particular shape to this line. It's completely random. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start from about the same point, and I'm going to come out off of that initial line just a little bit and follow the general contour. And then I'm going to do the same thing, start back at the same point, only this time I'm going to kind of come out and around a little bit. This time I'm not going to start on the same point. I'm going to start off of that shape just a little bit. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come out and around, sort of following the general shape, not exactly, because we don't want this to be uniform. We want it to be kind of abstract and random. And from here, the idea is that we're staying fairly close on the back side, but we're expanding out and out and out on the front side. So if you wanted to start this one off the same line as the last time, you certainly could, and stick kind of close to that outline. And maybe we're going to put 3 of them this time. And you can see I'm not being really terribly careful. My lines are touching here. They're not evenly spaced, and that's okay. That's part of what gives this its interesting design. So for this one, I'm going to start off the back and come out a little bit more. And you're going to vary the width between your lines and how many lines you put together. Maybe on this one, I'm only going to do 1 here. And then I'm going to bring another one out, way out off of it. So you can see that it's starting to build up to look like this idea. So this was put together essentially the same way. We started with this little pearl in the middle. I made it a little bit elongated, but essentially I built it the same way. I started back here, came up and around, start back here, come up and around. And you're moving out to one side of that initial shape in the middle, varying how many lines are together, how far those lines are apart. This one, I actually crossed the lines, and then I went back and filled some of it in here and there. So back to this one, we could bring another line out, but make it cross a little bit. That gives it a little bit of interest. And you get to decide how big or small this is going to be. And the idea is, while you're doing this kind of drawing, you're doing it slowly and deliberately. It's that slow and deliberate drawing that helps sidetrack your mind from your day-to-day thoughts and worries. So usually what I will do is sit down with a piece of paper. You know, this one's a 9 by 12, so something this size, a little smaller if 9 by 12 feels intimidating, and just do multiples of these all over the page. So I might want to start another one over here. And maybe this time I'm going to make it a little bit of a teardrop shape instead of more circular. That's perfectly fine. But I'm going to do essentially the same thing. I am slowly, whoops, move this over a little bit. Okay. I am slowly going to just work my way out, varying the space and the shape of these lines as I go. And you get to choose how wide or how tall it is. And I'm just working my way out and out and out. And I think it starts to look a lot like a clamshell, particularly where I started the two together like that. You certainly don't have to do it that way, but you can if you want to. Doesn't matter which direction you go. You can start from either side and work your way out. Now this one, because I'm close to the edge, I'm just going to take it right off the edge of the paper, imagining that if I go here, it would continue out over here and come back in. So you can do that same thing. Just make it go off the edge of the paper. And that kind of gives it the look of continuing. And then maybe I want to start another one right here. So again, I'm going to do essentially the same thing. because I started it up against this one, I'm just going to stop it here so it will kind of look like this one is actually sitting behind this one as I go. So ideally, you're just going to take your time doing this, drawing these lines as it feels good. There's no right or wrong to it. You're going to take your time. While you're drawing, you're going to keep your mind focused on what you're doing here. And how do I keep my mind focused? Well, if it starts to wander into thinking about all of the things that I have to do, or the things I didn't get done today, or what my to-do list has tomorrow, I'm going to bring it back to what I'm doing here by just repeating to myself in my head, draw a line, draw a line, draw a line. So maybe I'm going to start this one right here, and I want it to look like it's nestled down in there. So my beginning shape, I'm going to kind of tuck down in the space between these two. And then I'm going to start my lines from the top edge. So I would do something like this. And again, you're just slowly going to draw these around, varying the shape, how far out from each other they are. Put a couple right close together and then put one further away. If you want to make one cross every now and then, certainly you can make the line cross itself. Adds a little more interest to it. So you would literally just sit and draw until you fill up your whole page. I love techniques like this because they're not, we're not actually creating a fancy finished product. It is going to look interesting when you're done, but it's not something you have to sit down and, make sure your shapes are all right and everything's finished when you start it. I like to carry around one of these little sketchbooks. This one is a 5.5 by 8.5. So you can literally just flip this open to a page, start drawing those designs, whatever shape and size you want. And if you're maybe on a break from work and you've got 10 minutes, just sit and draw for 10 minutes, slowly, quietly. Works really well if you put on some relaxing music in the background. If you only get half of your page filled, that's great. Put it away, go back to work, do your thing. Maybe tomorrow on your break, you'll do a little bit more, do a little bit more. So it's really kind of fun to carry around a little sketchbook like that, and they don't take up much space. Now, if you're finding the drawing of the lines relaxing and you want to continue that once you've filled up your page, you can come back and color this in here and there. So an interesting way to do this is just start blacking in some of the lines randomly. Again, there's really no right or wrong way to do this. And I'm kind of not doing it very slow today because I don't want this video to be really, really, really long. But you'll get the idea here. As you start coloring these lines in, you're again doing it, hopefully, slowly, deliberately, and keeping your mind focused here on what you're coloring. Again, it helps sometimes to repeat to yourself, color in the space, color in the space, color in the space, or draw the line, draw the line. Where's the next line going to go? Literally say those things to yourself in your head to keep your brain focused here if you need to, until you get a little bit practiced at it. Now, I have found that I've done this enough and can feel such a difference in my body when I'm just sitting doing drawing like this that really doesn't have a purpose other than to be relaxing and stress relieving. My brain has gotten better at staying focused on what I'm doing here. The more I practice doing this, it's almost like it's gotten used to the idea that this is what we're supposed to do. So when I sit down and start doing a drawing like this, my brain's here, focused on what I'm doing, and I don't have to chase it around a lot anymore, which is lovely. I have tried all different kinds of meditation, and usually I feel like I'm chasing my brain around, trying to corral all the random thoughts going through my brain. And I don't have to do that as much with this. This is really quite unique in helping calm a lot of mental chatter. And hopefully you won't notice that I'm saying a lot, but I find that when I sit and do this and try and record and talk to you at the same time, my brain gets so focused here and I can feel everything relaxing. It's sometimes even hard to talk while I'm doing it. So you get the idea. You can start coloring these in. I like to sit and just do it with a black pen. The black and white graphic I find very appealing to my eye, and it's simple. Particularly if you're going to carry around something like this, you can do this and an ultra fine point Sharpie and you're good to go. That's really all you need. And you can do just infinite variations on this particular theme. Now, there's certainly other kinds of drawings you can do, and I will be showing you that the first Monday and Tuesday of every month going forward. But even just with this design, there's so many variations you can do because you're not going to draw these the same every time. Now, something else you can do if you don't particularly care for the black and white graphic aspect, I'm trying to find a bright color so you can see it, something like markers or colored pencils, you can do the same thing. Just come in and start coloring in your lines. If you want to color in just one or two here and there, just as kind of a little accent, certainly do that. If you want to color them all in, you can do that as well. You get to decide. That's where your creativity comes into this a little bit. But the act of coloring these in kind of helps prolong that meditative effect of what we're doing. And again, you're keeping your mind focused here by telling it, color here, color here, color here, or what's the next color? What's the next color? What's the next color? Keep it focused on what you're doing. And like I said, you get to decide how many of these, look at that, pencil broke. Let's find a different blue. So you get to decide how many of these you're going to color in and what colors you're going to use. Now, again, I'm going kind of fast because I don't want this video to be too terribly long, but obviously you're going to take your time, do this intentionally, taking your time not necessarily from the standpoint of, trying really hard to stay in the lines. If you go out of the lines, you go out of the lines. That's perfectly okay. But slowly and intentionally from the point of not hurrying through it because we hurry through everything in our day-to-day lives. Take this time to slow down, color it in, keep your mind focused here, and see how you feel when you're done. Okay? Now, if you want to get a little fancier with it, or perhaps you don't like the black pen or colored pencils or marker, you could do something with watercolor. Make some random shapes like this on a piece of paper in watercolor, and then come back and do this on top of your watercolor blobs. So with this one, I'm going to start right there, let's say. But I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the other one. I'm going to start at one spot, work my way up and around, and just continue letting this get bigger and bigger as I work my way out. Varying the distance between my lines, varying the shape of those lines, and just kind of letting my pen wander as I do this. I love Sharpies for this, but really you can do this with any pen that you have. You don't have to go out and buy anything special. You don't have to have special paper for this. You can do it on your kids' school notebook paper if that's what you've got. And that's part of what I love about these types of techniques. They don't require special supplies. They don't require prior art skill. You don't have to know how to draw a straight line or a perfect circle to do this. As you can see, there is nothing straight or perfect about those lines. Anybody, literally, can do this. And so you would just continue on working your way out until you're happy with the size and shape of that. And then again, if you want to come in and color some of them in, go right ahead. So there's lots of variations on ways you can do this. Lots of variations on the look that you get, depending on whether you color it in or not, how big you make them, whether you use something like a watercolor background first, or whether you do it with markers or colored pencils. They're all going to look different. You get to choose which is the look that is most appealing to your eye. You know, you'll hear people talk about good art, bad art, and what they maybe don't even consider art at all. And I'm here to tell you, if you're going to sit down, draw, paint, color, whatever you're going to do, it's art. Good and bad is subjective completely. It's all in the eye of the beholder. So you're going to do this to please you. This is, I consider this a form of journaling. Nobody ever has to see this if you don't want them to. This is your private drawing. Now, I will tell you, when you do this, you might find that you start getting thoughts and ideas come in out of nowhere. I will often flip this page over and write those thoughts or ideas that I have on the back, or have a separate piece of paper off to the side that I can write them down on as they come in, because I don't want to lose those creative tidbits. Those are things that I might not necessarily come up with during the day when I'm you know, in the throes of working and being logical and, you know, having to do all those day-to-day things. But when I sit down to be creative, my brain thinks differently, and yours will too. So it's always helpful to have, like I said, another piece of paper, or flip it over and write on the back to capture those thoughts as they come in. And certainly, if you get going with this and, you know, you like doing this and you want to embellish it a little bit, there is no reason you can't jazz it up a little bit by adding some dots. Dots are my favorite thing. Or some circles off the end, or other basic shapes around it. Doesn't have to be anything complicated, but can you see how that changes from where I started to looking more, I don't know what's the word, more, I hate to use the word more artistic, because any of this is artistic. But it just takes on a whole different, maybe more polished, not sure the word I want, but hopefully you get where I'm going. And you can see what that does is you start adding those other things. So give this a try, see what you think. If you enjoy it, you can always embellish it with other basic shapes. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, but adding these little things on gives it a different look and also extends that meditative time aspect of doing this. Ooh, that was bad, huh? So that's our short technique for today. Like I said, I'm going to share more of these every Monday and Tuesday going forward through this year. Give it a try, see what you think. If you run into questions, certainly feel free to message me or comment on the video. I'm going to post these videos on Instagram and Facebook and on my YouTube. So I'm at Painted Willow Art on both Instagram and Facebook. I am more active on Instagram than I am on Facebook, but I set my Instagram to cross post on Facebook. And I am Painted Willow Art on YouTube. I will put the links for all of that in the description of the video. So give it a try, and I would love to hear what you think. If you have questions, feel free to message me or comment. I will help however I can. And yeah, give it a try, and I'll have a new technique for you the first Monday and Tuesday of February. Thanks, everybody.